Convention Center located at 1201 South Figueroa Street starting Friday, November 20th through November 29th. It's the Watson Adventures Murder at the Getty Scavenger Hunt. A murdered curator has left behind a cryptic trail of clues connected with secrets and works at the Getty Center in Los Angeles. As your team gathers answers about the art, you'll piece together a sordid tale revolving around a planned purchase of a rare painting by Leonardo da Vinci. To solve the mystery, you will have to crack a secret code left in the victim's appointment calendar. Can you figure out who done it? The scavenger hunt takes place November 21st from 4:30 to 7 p.m. at the Getty Center in Los Angeles. For more information, visit watsonadventures.com. And that's a look at some things to do. Well, that's going to do it for this edition. I'm Yana Kay. And from all of us here at LA This Week, thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacityview.org. You can also follow and like us on Facebook. We'll see you back here next week for more of LA This Week.
Join the Emergency Management Department for a town hall meeting on Thursday, December 3rd at 6:30 p.m. at the Granada Hills Recreation Center in Granada Hills. We will review ways you, your neighbor, and your business can prepare for El Nino. Also let you know what the City of Los Angeles is doing to prepare for adverse weather. City officials and department representatives will help you understand your community's risk and answer questions related to wet winter weather. If you're unable to attend, information on El Nino preparedness for Los Angeles can be found at www.elninola.com.
Hi, I'm Kevin from Chatsworth, offering you a taste of New Orleans since 1986. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel.
sergeants, please call the council members, have them report to council. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It is Wednesday, November 18th. I want to welcome you to your Los Angeles City Council. This council meets every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. Shh. Mr. Clerk, we have a quorum. If you could please call the roll.
Blumenfield, Bono, Buscaino, Cedillo, Angler, Fuentes, Harris, Dawson, Weezer, Perez, Krikorian, Martinez, O'Farrell, Price, Rue, Wesson. 10 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
Okay, first order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Cedillo moves and Buscaino seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Harris Dawson moves and Rue seconds. That brings us where?
Mr. President, there are requests to continue items 27, 43, and 44 to November 24th.
Okay, so without objection, that will be the order.
Very good, sir. Items 1 through 14 are items noticed for public hearing. For item 1, the Department of Building and Safety recommends that the lien be reduced to $1,977.02 due to partial payment.
Okay, so without objection, that'll be the order. Do we have cards on these items?
Yes, sir, we do. We have cards on items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 14.
Okay, we will hold those items and prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, let's continue, Mr. Clerk.
Items 15 through 31 are items for which public hearings have been held. A Public Safety Committee report has been circulated and is before Council for consideration. For item 16, however, it should be held on the desk until such time as the Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee report has been circulated.
Okay, so let's hold item 16 and prepare to vote. So let's hold items 16, and I've been informed 15. So let's hold those items. So we're holding items 15 and 16 and 31. Let's prepare to vote. 15, 16, and 31. Let's prepare to vote on the remaining items. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that brings us to the next section of items. Is that your voice?
Mr. President, items 32 through 48 are items for which public hearings have not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, so without objection, those items are now before this body. Do we have cards on these items?
Yes, sir, we do. We have cards on items 32, 34, 38, 39, 40, 41, 45, 46, and 47.
Okay, let's hold those items and prepare the vote to vote on the remaining items. So if you, Madam Clerk, could please open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
And, Mr. President, those ordinances will go over 1 week unless reconsidered later with 12 members.
Okay, and we may get there. So as soon as we do, please remind whoever is in the chair, and then we will reconsider and vote again. That brings us
sir.
where?
Mr. President, that brings us to items 49 through 53. They're items scheduled for closed session. Would you like to hold them on the desk?
I'll defer to the Chair of Budget and Finance, Mr. Paul Krikorian.
Thank you, Mr. President. Budget and Finance has considered each of these items, recommends approval of the City Attorney's recommendations, and unless there are questions or concerns about any of those, they can be voted on in open session.
Okay, let's see if we can't do that. Mr. Clerk, if you would make the announcements that are necessary before us taking action on these items.
Very good, sir. For item 49, in the case entitled CPR for Skid Row et al. Versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $225,000 in settlement. For item 50, in the case entitled Ricardo Castillo et al. Versus City of Los Angeles, versus City of Maywood et al., there is a recommendation to expend $102,204.25 in settlement. For item 51, in the case entitled Stephanie Banks versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $400,000 in settlement. For item 52, in the case entitled Danielle Wells versus City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend $1 million in settlement. And for item 53, in the case entitled Sipple et al. Versus City of Alameda et al., there is a recommendation to settle the claim of plaintiff, New Singular Wireless, in the amount of $7,598,793.
Okay, do we, members? Okay, there are no speakers on the queue. So, Madam Clerk, why don't we proceed with voting on those items? Let us open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, members, let's move on to presentations. Mr. Cedillo, are you ready? Oh, Mr. Harris-Dawson, are you ready? Okay, let's move on to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Madam President. Being joined by our this morning's honoree and our senior lead officers from the 77th Division. We are very proud to be honoring this morning a champion for our community and someone who served us a very long time, and to mark here at LA City Council the end of watch broadcast for Police Officer Timothy Wunderlich, serial number 24095. Let's give Wunderlich a big round of applause. Tim was hired by the Los Angeles Police Department on March 21, 1983. Upon graduation from the academy, he was assigned to the Wilshire Division. While on probation, he was approached to be a juvenile narcotic in the Juvenile Narcotic Division, where he accepted the position as a school initiated by unit. I think they used to call that 21 Jump Street back in the day, Joe. Tim successfully worked as a undercover at San Pedro High School for 4 months, followed by a year-long detail with the citywide narcotic complaint unit. In 1985, Officer Wunderlich wheeled to 77th Street Division, where he quickly obtained the reputation as a hard-working, dependable patrol officer. In addition to his work ethic, Tim's outgoing personality and sarcastic wit made him very popular amongst his peers. While at 77th, Tim also worked the receiver team and the hype car and completed a loan to South Bureau Narcotics. By this time, it was clear that 77th would become his personal home. Tim was promoted to P3 Field Training Officer in 1993, and in 1994, he got the rank of Senior Lead Officer. In his capacity as a SLO, Tim blossomed as a leader and a mentor to young officers. He is a staunch family man, but they have to share him with us down in South L.A. He's a lover of NASCAR, his boat, and his Corvette, which I just found out about this morning, which he rarely drives, and a big fan of the Los Angeles Kings. He is the most tenured officer at 77th Street Division. His presence will be greatly missed, not only in the station, but on the streets and in almost every block club meeting and community meeting in the district. I had the pleasure of meeting Tim several years ago. I will report to my colleagues, Tim is the only man whose cell phone number is on my refrigerator, because he's our senior lead officer. And so always there when myself, my wife, or any of our neighbors call. And so we're very proud of what you've done for the city of Los Angeles. You've been a part of making us truly the city of angels that we are. And so we honor you today and are excited to hear a few words from you this morning.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's been a long career. I really enjoyed it. This wouldn't be done by the Slows behind me that worked with me for all the years, and probably that's the best time I've had on the department is working as senior lead and with the community. Like Marquis said, he attends their block clubs, and the block that we have is the 92nd Street Block Club. It's probably one of the most hard-working block club, and I really enjoyed was being on the job, enjoy working with the community. I'm going to miss it, and it's very important for members of the Block Club and city council members to work with the police department. Is very important of what we do. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we are presenting you with this proclamation on behalf of the City of Los Angeles, signed by all of the members. And we have another one coming from you, signed by the mayor of the City of Los Angeles at your luncheon that you're having down at the district. So, again, thank you all very much, and thank you all for being here with us this morning.
Mr. Harris Dawson, we have Mr. Buscaino who would like to say a few words.
Go ahead, take the picture. That's fine. As you're taking the picture, Tim, I want to rise and acknowledge your commitment to service within the Los Angeles Police Department, also serving the community in South Los Angeles. And I want to thank Councilmember Marquis Harris Dawson for recognizing your efforts and your passion to serve the residents in South Los Angeles. And of course, Marquis, you had Tim's number on your refrigerator. That means he was doing his job. And as senior leads across the city of Los Angeles, as I've always said, it takes a certain breed. Being a senior lead is not for everyone. You wear so many hats as a SLO, mentoring our youth, working with our residents, working with our businesses. And as we all know, as much as we want LAPD to be on every street corner 24/7, 7 days a week, it's not possible. Therein lies the importance of working and building partnerships with the community. And also, I remember Chief Bratton instilled in us the 3 Ps of community policing: partnerships, problem solving, and prevention. And you embodied all that, Tim. And for us to recognize you and your years of service gives us just a great gratitude for what you've done for the police department and your variety of assignments, but most recently your assignment as a senior lead officer. You have really left an impact in South Los Angeles, and I want to recognize your brothers in service as well, our senior lead officers. I know we recognized Senior Lead Officer Shea not too long ago, Mike, in your service to our city. So congratulations. We spoke offline about moving forward, what you're going to do next, and I know you look forward to spending time with your dad and going fishing, and I know your one son's on the job, patrolling our streets in the harbor, and one is in the process of getting hired. So God bless you. Enjoy your retirement, and we're really appreciative of your efforts and your service. I want to recognize Commander Tingridis, who's also here, a leader, our assistant commander officer in South Bureau. Thank you, Phil, for being here and joining our recognition of Tim. So thanks and congratulations.
Thank you very much, sir. And congratulations. Mr. Cedillo, are you ready? Mr. Clerk, let's move on to item 16 as our presentation is getting ready to set up.
Very good. Item 16, it was held for the distribution of a Personnel and Animal Welfare Committee report. That item has been distributed and circulated and now before Council for consideration.
Very well. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Item passes. Mr. Cedillo.
I hope I get this right.
All right, Gil.
All right.
So 50 years ago, imagine that, 50 years ago, that was the opening sound to the Beatles here in Los Angeles. Can you believe that? And it was sung by these young men, young Mexican Americans, young Chicanos known as Cannibal and the Headhunters. And Cannibal and the Headhunters were part of a group of young bands from the East Side that were spreading this unique sound, rock and roll, rhythm and blues, a sound that captured the nation. That was one of the top hits. It's been recorded by many other artists, been in many movies, and it's a sound that is unique to the East Side. I'm so proud that these young men came out of Boyle Heights, came out of the Ramona Projects, and they, with Little Willie G and the Midnighters, and later Al Chicano and Tierra, were the East Side sound. And so today we're here to honor, after 50 years, to honor that song, Land of a Thousand Dances, with its famous introduction, and to recognize those who are with us today, the historic contributions of Frankie Cannibal Garcia, Robert Rabbit Jaramillo, and Joe Yo-Yo Jaramillo, best known as Cannibal and the Headhunters, for putting Ramona Gardens and Boyle Heights on the musical map by opening for the greatest band of the world, the Beatles. We acknowledge Robert Zapata also, who's the trademark owner of Cannibal and the Headhunters, and is continuing the legacy of the band, as well as Max Hubales, who produced and co-produced several iconic recordings, including Land of a Thousand Dances. And today we have with us Robert Jaramillo, who is the last living member of Cannibal and the Headhunters. Man, these guys, if you would have seen them then, I was a young kid. I lived next to Larry Rendon, who was with the Midnighters, so I had the privilege of seeing all these bands play. They'd have these great Battle of the Bands at East LA College, and they and the Village Callers were also playing. Even at Lourdes Church. You guys ever play at Lourdes Church? No. No, even at Lourdes Church, they used to have these incredible bands, just one after the other would come up and play R&B, and I'm just excited to be here. Also, I want to give credit and acknowledgement. Maria Elena Yepes is here with us today, and she has a special place in my heart and in my life. I met her as a young 15, 16-year-old in the summer of 1970, and she convinced me that I should direct my energies and resources towards civic life. And so without her, I would not be standing here today. Her, with Antonio Hernandez, Samuel Paz, Luis Garza, were the most influential mentors and tutors a young man could have had in the summer of 1970. She's also here with us. But we're here to honor Robert Rabbit Jaramillo. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for putting Boyle Heights and East Los Angeles on the map. Thank you for making sure that we had a place in the cultural history of Los Angeles. Right. God bless you, my brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here and to be recognized. And I thank my daughter, Julie. Where is she? Right there. She's my driver and my everything.
Assistant.
And my daughter Ursula, she's also a helper. She helps drive, and because I can't drive no more, so. And it's a great honor to be here, and I'm glad that I could make it and be here with you and enjoy this day with you. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Cedillo.
Thank you. We're going to go to the back and sign 45s in the back right now.
45s, very well. Congratulations. Mr. Price, are you ready for your presentation, sir?
Madam President, members, on July 17 of this year, our country suffered a great tragedy. On that day, a lone gunman walked into Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and murdered 9 people for no other reason than the color of their skin. In the wake of this act of hate, there was an outpouring of love and support from around the world, including messages of support and prayer from this council chamber. We're here today to make sure that those 9 individuals are not forgotten, that we take away something from the tragedy and use it as an opportunity to deepen the conversation about race in America. On November the 20th at the Shrine Auditorium in the 9th District, we're going to shine a light on progress, where we've been and where we still need to go. This star-studded concert will benefit programming around the country that continues to highlight issues on race. It will be broadcast live on A&E, among other networks. And here to tell you more about this event is Elaine Fortran Bryant, the executive producer of programming for the A&E network. Elaine?
Thank you. Thank you so much. We at A&E Networks are so grateful to the City of Los Angeles, to Mayor Garcetti and the entire City Council, and Jackie DuPont Walker for their generosity and partnership in working with us to put together this very important event. The City of Los Angeles has been a leader among American cities in making space for dialogue and progress on race relations. We are so proud to have your support in this event. The Shining a Light concert and fund is a response to the cry of forgiveness that our country heard from the lips of family members in Charleston whose loved ones were murdered while in the Bible study in their very own church in Charleston, South Carolina. We were moved by their tears and inspired by their example in the face of pure evil and hatred. And so tonight, we are hosting a concert to shine a light for progress on race in America. We are gathering to honor the memory of the lives lost in Charleston, Ferguson, Baltimore, Staten Island, Chicago, and so many more. But we're also gathering to make a difference. We know that in every tragedy, we see others running to the scene to offer help, forgiveness, aid, care, and love. This concert will be broadcast on A&E Networks on Friday, November 20th. And during the broadcast, we'll invite the country to donate to help us establish a fund powered by the United Way to support organizations and individuals who are working to heal historic racial divides, to identify and eradicate bias, and to activate positive solutions, as well as to directly aid the Charleston community that inspired this effort. We seek your support in this effort. We hope you will tune in on Friday for an amazing night of music and stories that will call us to action and inspire us. And we also hope that you'll give generously to the fund. Together, we can be a country that runs to offer care and love in the face of racism and violence, and together we can make a difference. So I thank you again to the City of Los Angeles and to Mayor Garcetti. This is a true honor for the A&E family. Thank you.
Thank you. With us today, we also want to acknowledge Stacy Stewart, President of United Way Worldwide, along with colleagues from the United Way. Sean Dove, President of the Campaign for Black Male Achievement. Judith Deannis, Coordinator for this achievement project. And our dear friend, Ms. Jackie DuPont Walker, Metro Board Member, and also Social Action Officer International for the AME Church. We want to thank everyone for speaking out and for continuing to be a voice and continue to be vocal on this important issue. Thank you. We got it. Should we go in the back or do you want to do it? Let's go in the back. We're going to go in the back.
Mr. Harris Dawson.
Thank you so much, Madam President. And I just want to rise and thank my colleague, Councilman Curran Price, for bringing this to the attention of the city and for making sure an effort like this has a home in Los Angeles. I don't think there's any better place to shine the light on the goodness that comes out of the tragedies and the goodness that can help us prevent tragedies in the future. So again, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you to all of our good friends from United Way Advancement Project and around the country. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. That concludes presentations for our meeting. Mr. Clerk, let's move on to item 31.
No, we're just going to take it out.
So,
I think it's working.
Madam President, the screen is up.
All right, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And let the record show also that we satisfied public comment in committee. Item passes. Mr. Clerk, can we send that urgent forthwith as well?
Very good. Madam President, we should first vote on that matter.
Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Let's move on to item 32.
Item 32, called special for cards.
First speaker is Rola Masri. Rola Masri, is that person in the room? Gail Murphy? Gail Murphy, are you here? Can you please come forward? Followed by Dr. Martin Blank. Okay, she passes. Are you Gail Murphy, ma'am? Okay, she declines. Okay. Dr. Martin Blank, you pass as well. Kevin Mortis passes. And Rhodes? Rhodes, the person named Rhodes. Okay, that concludes our cards. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Item passes. Let's move on to item 34.
That's 34, called special for cards.
Cohasset. That's the name on the card. Someone signed up to speak on item 34 and wrote down Cohasset. Okay, seeing no one come forward, let's close speaking. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Mr. Clerk, let's move on to item 39.
Very good. That's item 39, called special for cards.
Donna Perlman. Good morning, Donna.
And I want to tell you, this is a very good item because Daniel Radcliffe, he was from the Harry Potter series, and I really liked all their books, and I really liked all their movies. So I think this one's good on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
We got to go support the ride when it opens next year, Donna. The Harry Potter ride at Universal. Mr. Walsh, item 39. Good morning, Mr. Walsh.
Good morning. Always a pleasure to speak in front of you. John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org or J. Walsh Confidential. The first time I set foot on the Hollywood Walk of Fame was the summer of '66, before most of you were even born. I was an adult then and living in Westwood. Okay, the Walk of Fame is essentially for white guys. Okay, Dan, you'll see there's one woman here. If you're black, stay back, stay back, stay back. You're not going to... How many rap stars are on the Walk of Fame? It's not for black people, it's for white people. You better understand that, you blacks. And it's not for Mexicans, it's not for Hispanics. And, of course, it's in terrible, terrible condition. Come to my website. They don't fix it. They tear it apart. And it's racist. HollywoodHighlands.org. 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. That concludes public cards on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Okay, item passes. Mr. Clerk?
Madam President, would now be a good time to reconsider the ordinances?
Let's vote on reconsideration. Let's open the roll.
And those are items 33, 35, 36, and 37.
Very well. Open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are now before you.
Okay, let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Very well. Let's move on to item 38.
38 called special for cards.
Mr. Walsh? Mr. Walsh passes on item 38. I have no more cards. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Let's move on to item 40.
That's item 40 called special for cards.
Ms. Antonia Ramirez, are you here? Good morning, ma'am. Item 40.
I'd like to say on the Walk of Fame, most of these names I'm not even aware of. I don't even know who Ridley Scott is. I wish we could put El Jefe, Donald Trump, Walk of Fame star.
He already has a star, ma'am. We need to
we need a double
item.
star. But thank you very much. I reserve my time. Thank you.
Thank you. There are no more cards on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Let's move on to item 41.
Called special for cards.
Eric Previn, are you here, sir?
Greetings. I guess you didn't call my card on 32, so I will address. This is the Snoopy Walk of Fame item, isn't it? I've asked the CD2 folks to get some of the lighting district information together, but regarding Snoopy, I have to say this is a great icon of America, George Shultz. Everybody loves Snoopy, and I'm going to say this quickly before I get emotional. There was a notice today in the paper about the horror show in Paris, and they cited Diesel, the 7-year-old dog, as they were resolving things. So, mourning the loss of that guy. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Previn. Ms. Antonia Ramirez, item 41, ma'am. You pass. Mr. Walsh, item 41.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org, tweeting at Hollywood Dems. I live about 250 feet from the Hollywood Walk of Fame. We went through this about the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The people put it in there, one of the greatest tourist attractions on the planet Earth. They're for people. They're for human beings. They started this business. Snoopy is a commercial product. The people paying for this are the studios. It is to promote a commercial product, not to promote. I just want blacks and Hispanics to know they're more interested in a goddamn dog. It doesn't even exist on Hollywood Walk of Fame, rather than on black stars or Hispanic stars or Asian stars or American Indian stars. This started with Bugs Bunny. We fought that. That was about 25 years ago when they put Bugs Bunny. It's a Warner Brothers product. It doesn't exist. It's as much a human being as this microphone is a human being. But yet, when you come to Hollywood Boulevard, you will see more and more commercials for cartoon products. And you're going to vote it in. You're going to vote it in. Mr. Rue, Banana Rue, yellow on the outside, white on the inside. He's going to vote for it. HollywoodHighlands.org.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. That concludes cards on this item. Mr. Clerk, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Item passes. Let's move on to item 45.
That's 45 called special for cards.
Mr. Previn, Eric Previn, item 45.
Thank you. Thank you. It is Eric Previn, a resident from CD2. And item 45 deserves our careful scrutiny. This is a motion by Herb Wesson relative to council actions from the 2014 and 2015, basically Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative improvement activities. So he's going to come up with $300,000 for apparently his district. So I just would love to know how that is intended to be deployed given the crisis, and what kinds of, it's not for neighborhood council, I don't believe, although it is a little bit confusing because it's the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative, Neighborhood Improvement Activities. So thank you, I suppose. Maybe somebody would give a presentation about, nobody has any idea what we're meeting on today because everything is just a opportunity to dispense with the items. Ms. Martinez, does that interest you or not really? Okay.
It's not talking about this item.
Thank you, Mr. Previn. Next speaker, Antonio Ramirez on item 45, ma'am.
I'm definitely against this one. Weston and Price, you ought to be ashamed of yourselves. Allocating $300,000 to initiative neighborhoods, allocating the additional $300,000 to these neighborhoods to improve their quality of life. First of all, weed out the gangbangers and the wetbacks. They've been indoctrinated since they were infants, so you cannot change them. If you don't teach them when they're young, right from wrong, they're not.
Ms. Ramirez, you need to speak to the item, ma'am.
$300,000 is enough to put toilets, showers, and laundries for the homeless out on the streets. Get rid of these goddamn wetbacks and gangbangers who are destroying.
That's not speaking on the item, ma'am.
Fund $300,000 for those good youth and good people who deserve the right to live in a wonderful environment. And there are good black people and there are good Latinos, but the bulk of them
She is
suck.
not talking about this anymore.
Not on the subject. Ms. Ramirez, thank you very much. Thank you. We are done. Thank you. That concludes cards on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Let's move on to item 46.
46, called special for cards.
Donna Pearman, are you speaking on item 46, ma'am?
I say still say I'm sorry about this one. They're murdered, and of course you get snitches get snitches. They're not going to be saying anything because they don't want to get murdered. No amount of money will allow that. And in the meantime, the biggest problem is that we don't have the right to carry, and we got a lot of people that are dangerous out there. And then we also have the gangbangers over there, like she always speaking about. And we're the ones that have to be out in the street, and we're the ones that had to be murdered by these dangerous people. I really believe that we have the right to carry and bear arms.
Donna, has nothing to do with the item.
Yes, it does, because they're murdering people.
Regarding our reward motion, ma'am.
Arm. The right to bear arms.
Thank you, Donna. Next speaker, Antonia Ramirez. Ms. Ramirez, are you speaking on item 46? We're on item 46.
Again, on item number 46, we are paying hefty rewards for all these criminal activities. We have put a lot of surveillance cameras that have cost us taxpayers millions of dollars, and yet here we cannot find the culprits and the suspects for all these criminal activities. Why are we not using the surveillance camera, city attorneys? Why are we paying rewards to suspects rather than paying it to law-abiding citizens, okay? Why are we offering these kinds of reward offers to anybody? Why don't we use the surveillance? We are paying for that. Again, city attorneys, we are not using surveillance cameras at all, not even for homicides. Again, please let us now use the surveillance cameras and stop putting out $50,000 or so for rewards. That is driving this city to the ground. We're going to all end up on the streets, including you, city attorney and council members. We cannot afford to. Thank you, city attorney. Do your fucking job.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Next speaker, John Walsh.
John Walsh. This is a reinstatement of a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest, conviction of Brandon Jamail Shorts. Okay, remember, Google snitches get stitches. As a result of my getting up here, it's a phrase that's known all over the world. Now, I taught in that neighborhood for 25 years down in South Central. And I'm telling you right now, let's go ahead. Mr. Koretz is having phone sex on his iPhone. I'm telling you right
He is
now,
not talking about the
this
item right
reward is bullshit. It will never be paid out. You've paid out one reward, as Mr. Koretz said, for a hit and run in West when the victim was a Jew. The victim was a Jew, then something will happen. And I want to say, I'm a race traitor, and I want every minority to know, if your skin is white and you're Jewish, you have a lot of clout in this
Mr. Walsh,
city.
you're not talking about the subject, sir.
You that 100%, this $50,000 reward makes you sound like you're going to catch. I want anybody up here that you're going to catch this guy. If somebody, first of all, they have people inside here. Anybody calls the LAPD, the cops then tell the gangs about who the snitch is, and the snitch gets killed. Take a look at the shirt. It's on my website. It's on, and it has a straight razor with blood coming out of it. It is 100% suicide for anybody to snitch on a gang killer, and you goddamn well know it, you shitheads.
Thank you. There are no more cards on this. There are no more cards on this item. Mr. Clerk, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Let's move on to item 47.
Item 47 called special for cards.
Antonio Ramirez. You pass. Janice Spears. Are you? Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, Council. I'm here on behalf of my murdered grandson, Justin Logie. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Price has made a motion for a $50,000 reward. And contrary to what you're hearing from the other speakers about the money is not placed in a good place, yes, it is, because I do want the murderer of my grandson found and brought to justice. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Thank you very much. That concludes our cards for item 47. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
14 ayes.
Item passes. Let's move on, Mr. Marquise. Item 15.
Madam President, you know, some time ago in the summer, we had an outbreak of homicides in Council District 8 and throughout South Los Angeles. At that time, we began engaging the Los Angeles Police Department along with other community members to get ideas for how we could get back in front of the problem of violence, especially of homicides in South Los Angeles. The more we talk with folks and the more we drill down and had community around these issues, we found that we needed to open up the whole thing and identify what works, what there are problems with, and how we can better utilize the resources that we have in hand. As an organizer, I value getting people together and getting our best thinking and getting the folks with the most at stake at the table so they can put forward what I think will eventually be the best ideas and the ideas that stick. I was able to share with Los Angeles Police Department my desire for community-based and relationship-based policing. They were able to bring forth models of that. And so today we have representatives from LAPD and from our GRID program that I'd like to call forward and ask a few questions before we consider this matter and hear public comment.
Mr. Harris-Dawson, we also have several cards on your item.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead and have presentation, and then we can follow
Okay, perfect. Thank
public
you.
comment after.
Thank you.
Can you please come to the table?
begin with Los Angeles Police Department. We're joined by Officer Tingarides.
Good morning. I'd like to start off by thanking CD8, CD9, CD15, who have all been working with South Bureau. Also Herb Wesson, who is also a part of South Bureau. The support that we are getting is very promising. What ultimately happened in August, we had a 2-week period from August 15th to August 29th, where in South Los Angeles we saw a extreme spike in violence. During that 2-week period, we had 50 people shot, and 16 of those people died as a result of mostly gang shootings. When we were reacting to those crimes, we had community meetings, we had meetings between the LAPD and GRID, we had meetings with all of the council members, and all trying to work together in partnerships with community-based organizations with the community to try and fix it. And what we ultimately are trying to focus on doing is coming up with a program much like the Community Safety Partnership Program, which we have had in Watts for the last 4 years. What we saw in Watts when we brought the Community Safety Partnership Program together was a collaboration between the police department, the community, GRID, the Housing Authority, and the focus was not to go out and make arrests. The focus was to build relationships. The focus was to open up communication between the police and the community. And what we saw in Watts was about a 50% drop in violent crime in the first year, which has sustained over that same 4-year period. Currently, while the rest of the city is seeing an increase in violent crime, Watts has seen a continued decrease, especially as it relates to homicides and persons shot. So what we're trying to do now is expand that Community Safety Partnership Program. We have recently expanded it into Avalon Gardens and Gonzague Village. We are working with the Housing Authority right now to expand it into the Pueblos. And more importantly, we want to take it outside of the public housing developments and into some of the other communities where we can see if that concept works as well as it has in Watts. We're working together with the council districts to try and pull that together. And if we're able to make that model succeed outside of the public housing developments, the benefits is beyond just the lowering of the violent crime, but also is the partnerships, the relationships with the community, between the police and the community, and also working together with a number of different partners to keep the crime down.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you. My name is Ann Tremblay. I'm the Director of the Mayor's Office of Gang Reduction and Youth Development, and I'd like to echo what Commander Tingarides said. We really appreciate the support from the council members, particularly those in South Los Angeles, have worked very closely with us to respond to the uptick in crime, and for them to also support our many community-based organizations, which are key partners to the work of the Gang Reduction and Youth Development Office. As you're aware, we expanded GRID this fiscal year. We added significant amount of territory to GRID. We added 6 new zones and an additional $5.5 million. A significant majority of that went to the areas of South LA because that's where the data told us we needed to be. That's where, even before the summer uptick, there was a trend from the information and meetings we had with LAPD that we were seeing an increase in gang violence and violent crime, and we sought to address that through the expansion of GRID by adding that territory and adding the new community-based agencies. We'll be working with LAPD to support the expansion of the Community safety partnerships. GRID has played a role for those community safety partnerships in the Watts area, and I know that our agencies will be able to add value to that expansion. In response to the August, in particular the incidents in August and that increase that certainly got a lot of media attention and had community members expressing significant concern, we brought together a regular series of meetings with some of our leading intervention workers to develop some added strategies in response. We've identified some folks to add on to our crisis ambassador team because we had some flexible funding for a more rapid, nimble response this year. So we will be adding additional crisis intervention workers from particular neighborhoods, including some of the neighborhoods and communities across our city border into the county, across from South LA, where those communities or neighborhoods, those gangs are influencing some of the violence that we've seen on the city side. So we've just executed a contract to be able to add those intervention workers. Our team, our South LA strategy team that's been working together weekly has identified some intervention ambassadors to be hired and added so that they can work in those communities and make an impact. I'm happy to say that many of those have been identified, have already started working, and we believe have made an impact, even though they're not getting paid. They've once we're approached, we're committed to helping us reduce the violence, reduce the shootings, and reduce the homicides. So I'll just close by saying that I think many of you know who have grid zones in your area that we have a whole range of services, but a really key component of what grid is able to do in response to shootings and homicides, in response to violent crime, is to rely on our community-based intervention workers who respond to those scenes, work to prevent retaliation, do proactive peacekeeping because they care deeply about stopping the violence in those communities. And they've been very willing to partner with us as a city and to partner with the Los Angeles Police Department through the GRID office in ways to help quell that violence, so that our response is not just suppression or pure law enforcement, that we can build trust and legitimacy with the community as a government, as a police, for the police department, and know that they can rely on us to look for multitude of ways to respond to violence, not just through suppression, but through supporting the community. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A couple questions. I just wanted to acknowledge that we have leadership from the Department of Rec and Parks as well as the LA Fire Department. That's part of the coalition of institutions that we're bringing together to create this environment. Officer Tingarides, I wanted you to talk a little bit more about the community policing program, how we might pay for that, because it's not cheap necessarily. And then can you talk a little bit about what's happened sort of between Labor Day and now with regard to violence in South LA?
The Community Safety Partnership, it's much like a footbeat. It is one of the more expensive means of policing because there is a lot of one-on-one. You're not in a car driving around going from call to call. Instead, there is engagement with the community. There's programming that works together specifically with kids in the community. Some of the programs that we've had that have been tremendously successful, the Watts Bears, which is a football program of kids from 3 different public housing developments that in the past have had some very significant gang battles, who are now playing on teams together. We have a Girl Scouts of America troop in Watts. We have tutoring. We have scholarship programs. And all of these programs started out with some funding that came from the Housing Authority to help support the kids that live in the housing developments. Many of those programs have caught the eye of community-based organizations and people who are now donating once they've seen that this is a successful program. And so we're going to look for the Pueblos and added it in there. We're going to look at the Housing Authority, City of Los Angeles, to fund that because it is a public housing development. And then we're working together with council and with Congress folks to try and get some grants and fund these programs. As it relates to the crime, since we saw that spike in the 4-week period that ended on November 7th, compared to the 4-week period in the summer where we saw the spike, our homicides are down 59%, our shootings are down 40%, and victims shot are down 70%. And that's a direct result of the partnerships between all of the entities that have been working together. And that's really the key, is community, grid, council, the police department, the fire department, Parks and Recs, everybody working together on this problem, because this is not just a police problem, it is a community problem.
And last question before we hear public comment, Madam President. One of the most disturbing things about this summer, and I know some are here to make public comment, is that we actually, for the first time that I've known about it, and I've been tracking this for over 10 years, we actually lost intervention workers to homicides during the summer. Can you all talk about what you found out about that? And I know that happened in South LA. I think that also happened in the Valley as well. And so that's a very disturbing trend that we'd like to get to the bottom of as quickly as we can.
Thank you, Mr. Marquis, and specifically in my district, in Panorama City.
Well, I can say at this point, the police department is not seeing a direct connection between those acts of violence and the job that they were doing as intervention. Now, one of the things that you have to understand about intervention is you have to be in that community. You have to be working with folks who are involved in some of those violent crimes in order to stop it from happening. And at this point, I can't say that any of them were shot and killed because of their job or while they were doing their job, but it is no doubt a very, very dangerous position to be in.
Yeah, with regard to the South LA incidents, again, we've connected closely with LAPD because those intervention workers, the two over the summer were S&L intervention workers. They weren't year-round intervention workers, but they had repeatedly, summer after summer, had been working at S&L sites to support our successful Summer Night Lights program, and were an integral part of help keeping the park safe and welcoming for all families. And again, those shootings, from the information we received from LAPD, happened separate from the parks when they were not at work. Unfortunately, although they did not result in death, a recent shooting in the Valley, two of our contracted intervention workers through our contractor in the Valley in Councilmember Martinez's district were in fact working when they were shot. They have both survived. They're both going to be fine, but they were working a community event at the time they were shot. Again, the information from LAPD does not indicate that they were targeted in any way because of their role as intervention workers or their work for a particular agency. That's the information we've received. Certainly, regardless of what's happened, the GRID office, as a partner with our community-based organizations, responded to those family members of those that were injured or killed, and also worked with the agencies through which they were employed to make sure they got the support services they need and the family had the support services they need through our crisis response team, as well as through any benefits that may exist. And we also made sure that the agencies had the support and crisis response support that they might need, because the fellow employees might be scared or concerned because of what happened to their coworkers.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harris-Dawson. Mr. Price, followed by Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to thank my colleague, Marquis Harris-Dawson, for bringing this matter up today and for his attention to this issue. In recognition that it doesn't just impact the 8th, doesn't just impact the 9th or the 10th, but it really is a citywide concern that we have. I certainly have appreciated the efforts working with each of you and your teams over the past several months as we address that spike and then, try to address really the long-term solutions and approaches. And I think it's important. Pleased that we've got the library and Parks and Rec as part of this discussion. We need to do that. And I just want to just underscore, Mr. Dawson and I have been talking about the importance of collaborating between our two districts, especially. And so I'm just hopeful that, as these programs roll out, they certainly have some spillover impacts. I'm pleased that we're going to be expanding the program into the Pueblos in terms of the public housing. But just want to make sure that we're coordinating with all of our outreach efforts, certainly the grid efforts, in collaborating not just in one district, not just in 8, but also in 9, to the extent that there's some overlap. Certainly the issues are the same, and I wouldn't want the administrative structure to kind of stop at the border of the 8th as opposed to continuing in. So to the extent that we can enhance and really foster a seamless provision of those services, I think it's going to help us all. I think that the intervention workers, sorry to hear about those, the fatalities. I think the intervention workers, the mentors, are a real resource. I think we need to be treating them better. We've talked about this. That came out at our public hearing in terms of pay, in terms of benefits. I think it's a good investment in a peaceful future. And I know you all are committed to that. I'm just sort of talking to the choir now. But these intervention resources, I think, have been invaluable. I think it really has distinguished Los Angeles and has been a model really around the country for what's possible when the community is really a part of that discussion, the conversation. So I just applaud the efforts. Look forward to working with you both. Excited about the direction we're headed in, knowing that we're not out of the woods. The answer is certainly not only intervention. We need to be doing some earlier activities in terms of education and programming, et cetera. But we do have to collaborate, and I think communication is certainly the most important part of that process. And so thank you for the efforts, and I look forward to joining you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Buscaino?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to Marquise, Councilmember Harris Dawson, for your leadership on this issue. We have really suffered a rough summer in South Los Angeles. And we've been blessed in Watts that, lives weren't lost as they were in other parts of the city. But let me say this, a life lost to gang violence in the Valley is no different than a life lost to gang violence in South Los Angeles. If anyone who is skeptical about relationship-based policing, I urge them to come to a Watts Gang Task Force. I see a number of our Watts Gang Task Force members who are here today. We've been truly blessed, but we need to have and encourage more of these relationships between the community and the police department throughout the city of Los Angeles. I understand that some of our gang intervention workers, and God bless them, these are the angels in the city of Los Angeles who continue on a 24-hour basis, get mobilized every time there's a gang homicide, and work with the commanders and the COs throughout the city of Los Angeles within the LAPD. What is the relationship between the police department and our gang intervention workers, because I know in my district it's a strong relationship, but other parts of the city, like CD8, CD9, CD10, how is that work? How would you describe the relationship between the LAPD officers and the gang intervention workers on the ground in those specific districts that have been hit by gang violence?
I'm very happy to report that it's growing in a very positive way. This afternoon I'll be out at Davis training facility teaching a block in a 8-hour class that includes intervention and police officers. And this intervention growth has been a process. And it really started with interaction between at the captain level and intervention, and has been pushed down over the years. But it's a change in police culture. It's a change in culture with the community. And in order to do that, you have to do it slowly, because you have to have the buy-in. You can't force culture change. And so we're at a point now where we're having interaction in an 8-hour class between intervention and police so that they get to know each other and understand what each other's role is. And I have to say that the first class that they had, I was kind of floored at the end of the class to see intervention and police officers going up and shaking hands and hugging each other at the end, because we're really changing the culture around to see that everybody's out for the same goal and that we can work together to try and solve the problems. Now, you know, there's different cultures in intervention in different parts of the city. And I can speak pretty clearly about South Bureau, and I really want to give a shout out to Intervention in Watts, because they have seen its success, and in collaborating with other parts of the city, they're going out and working with other intervention folks to show the trust that we've developed in Watts and help that to grow across South LA, and it's been a tremendous help.
I don't know where in the country, colleagues, you're going to find this effort and this relationship between former gang members and the LAPD. If you look at kids killing kids in the city of Chicago, headlines after headlines of what's taking shape there is very unfortunate and horrific. I'm just really pleased with the effort, even more so hearing from you, Commander, that we've seen a reduction of these gang homicides since August, and I attribute that to the success of the efforts being made by the men and women of the LAPD and the community as well. And also, can you share with us, lastly, the mobilization of, I know we've beefed up Metro Division, to address some of the higher violent crime areas, and which is great. Share with us that piece. And I dropped the motion last week on how we're balancing violent crime with property crime, and I'm hoping to hear that in public safety very soon, because I know it's a balancing act. So how has mobilizing Metro to these higher crime areas have impacted the reduction of crime since August?
Well, Chief Beck saw the need to increase the number of officers in Metro whose primary focus is suppression. However, it was his intent that as they grew and as he expanded that unit, that we would be able to deploy a certain number of officers per day, but also that they would not be focused just on suppression as Metro has in the past, but they would also become involved in community too. And so that's a piece that they went through some training on. They are expected to go to some community meetings and join some of our other relationship-based building events also. To the crime piece.
Yeah, because it's like we can't soften this. These are thugs out there who are committing homicides on our kids. So are we making the arrests that are necessary? Are we arresting these shot callers out there who are terrorizing our neighborhoods in the city?
Yes, and understand. I understand that we do need to focus on those who are hardcore criminals who the relationship-based police is not going to work on. And that is what Metropolitan is doing. There is currently 28 Metropolitan Division officers deployed 7 days a week in each of the 4 bureaus. And when the chief got Metropolitan Division up to the numbers that he was looking for, in order to make sure that each part of the city is getting equally served, he split those into 4 different units so that each part of the city gets those 28 officers. And then it's up to the Bureau, my level, to take a look at current crime and deploy those officers within the Bureau each day. And so it's very flexible. We have the ability when we have a problem to move them. We had a homicide down in San Pedro, and I moved a squad down into San Pedro. They were taken out for a couple of days. They're back yesterday. The arrests that the Metropolitan Division officers have been making in South Bureau, I can talk specifically, is generally 2 to 3 gun arrests per night. Good. And those are guns that are usually in cars, or the people have on bicycles. The people that are out doing the shooting, causing the violent crime, is who they're focused on.
Very good. We'll continue to make those arrests and put those guys in jail, where at the same time we can continue to bring peace in our communities. Ms. Tremblay?
Thank you, Councilmember Buscano. I just wanted to address some follow-up on Commander Tangrides on your first question. I think every part of the city, every neighborhood is different in terms of the relationships, has some nuances and differences between relationships between the LAPD, the intervention workers, our intervention agencies. And so I think one of the things that's great about the community-based model is each area is going to be a little different. What we try to stress through the training that we do in our Intervention Training Academy and certification program, as well as trainings that our intervention workers participate in with LAPD, is to make sure each side, both the police, especially those on the streets every day, and our intervention workers understand each other's job and role. And of course, our intervention workers' role is not to tell the police who committed a crime. They aren't witnesses. They aren't a conduit for law enforcement in that way. They have a distinct, important, and separate role which we train them in and we hold them accountable for to make sure that they can help keep the peace in the community. And so in some instances that might not involve direct communication with LAPD officers or command staff. That's part of why we have the grid office and the team there that is assigned geographically, develops those relationships with the intervention workers, can act as a conduit. We call it a triangle relationship. And to your point, no other city in this country who has street intervention does it the way we do. But I just want to emphasize that we want good relationships and good understanding of each other's roles, but each has a role to play, and there is an independence and a separate accountability for the role of intervention in our intervention agencies that I think is able to complement the work of LAPD.
And lastly, I want to thank and really recognize Councilman Harris Dawson for folding in our partners with the Department of Recreation and Parks, Mr. Reagan, Cara Cooper, champions in the department. And that's what it's going to take. You know, we cannot work in silos. We need to ensure that our parks are safe and clean and that our families don't have that fear of taking their kids to play at our local parks. So I appreciate that effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. Thank you very much to both of you. I'm going to take public comment now. No, you can go back to your seats. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, let's open public comment for 1 minute. And the first speaker is Fernando Rejon. Oh, Mr. Carres, I'm sorry. You're on the queue to speak. But if I can have Fernando Rejon come to the mic.
Yeah, I had a question for the folks that are just leaving from...
Okay, let's bring them back to the... Sorry about that, folks.
Yeah, I don't have any question about the things that we're doing in response to the problem. I'm just wondering if we're taking a close enough look at what's causing this change to begin with. Is it statewide initiatives that have been passed? Is it policies that have changed the location of many of our inmates? Have we taken a close enough look at what's generating the problem in addition to the things we're doing to solve it? We're sort of treating the symptoms. So the question is, are there things we could be doing politically or otherwise if we've actually successfully identified what's caused this shift after such a strong performance for years in a dropping crime rate? How have we suddenly seen this increase?
I'm not sure that there's been any specific research where we could point to say, and I think you mentioned legislation, where we can point to any one piece of legislation or any one thing that has caused this. It's probably a number of different things. When we took a look at the rash of violence that we saw in August, we really went through trying to figure out what caused this, and there was at least 3 different homicides that we saw where we could point to somebody who was in custody for a number of years, like 10 to 15 years, who really hadn't been exposed to the changes that we have seen in South Los Angeles. And the changes I'm talking specifically are the relationship and the growing in trust between the police and the community. They went into custody a long time ago when things were very different. And when they got out, there were probably some warning signs that we're trying to figure out how we can identify those and focus on those folks who are coming out, who came out with the intent to commit violence. And sometimes when you have somebody that comes out and they may commit some very targeted acts of violence, which we saw, and they may also commit some very arbitrary acts of violence just to show that I'm out and look what's happening. When that happens and a community starts trying to figure out where it came from, it can cause kind of a domino effect, and I think that's a good part of what we saw this summer.
So are there things that we can do to undertake more of what I'm talking about and looking more at the root causes of the overall problem?
Well, I think that one of the things that, and you know, it depends on the person, because you can't help somebody if they're not ready to get help, and there are a lot of arrests that we make that there's not a system behind the arrest to properly deal with that. And so when we have folks that are coming out of custody, or we have folks that we can, and especially kids, because I've really looked at what we're doing as a police department to change the dynamics of our relationships, but also to change the crime picture, focusing on the next generation. And we have been doing that for the last 5 to 8 years, where we're in schools heavily. We're working on programming with kids. We're changing the dynamics of how some kids see their community through services by CBOs once a child has been exposed to a very traumatic scene. And I think support of those kinds of programs would go a long ways. And again, really changing the crime picture is not going to happen overnight. It's a process that we have to look years ahead. And I think we have already seen a tremendous drop compared to what we had 2008 and earlier. But if we want to see that continue, we're going to have to look at new and different ways, because just making an arrest is not going to change anything.
Mr. Koretz, I'm going to remind you on your time, and I've been having this gentleman stand there after I called his name, who's waiting for public comment.
Sorry, could I ask one more question, and I'll be done. And he perhaps could have a seat while we're
Well, he
doing
was
this.
called because. Never mind, sir. I apologize. Can you sit down? One more question, Mr. Koretz.
I know we've had a certain amount of transfer of inmates from the state system to the local system, which in many ways is problematic, but it also gives us an opportunity, because the state system had the worst recidivism rate. I think last I looked, it was double the next closest state. And so if we actually implement better policies than the state had to prevent that, we could also make some significant progress. And I'm just wondering if the city and the county have had much chance yet to take advantage of that opportunity.
Thank you, Councilmember Koretz. I'm happy to say that the mayor asked us to look at creating an Office of Reentry, and that has now happened. We've hired someone to manage that. Person, Kimberly Gilmette, just started about 2.5 months ago, came over from the Attorney General's office, and she's been charged with just that. We've already had many meetings across the city and the county with several of the supervisor's office, with probation, also with parole, with the sheriff's department, to look at ways that we can impact those that are coming out of custody, many who are returning to local custody, to your point, because of legislation, as well as what's happening coming out of even of county jail, because some of the incidents that we've seen may even just be connected to county jail, not just prison. And so I look forward to the opportunity, and I know the mayor's office does, of having Ms. Gilmette be able to come and report at some point about about what's been developed, because we've put together some really promising things that I think will help bridge that gap between city and county in a really positive way for those that are coming out of custody. We may not be able to change the legislation that's already occurred, but in terms of addressing those that are returning to the city of LA after being in custody, whether they're gang related or not, we feel like we've got some great ideas to make an impact on that as a city.
Very good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to public comment now. Fernando Rejon, are you here?
Hi, good morning, Council. My name is Fernando Rejon. I'm with the Urban Peace Institute. In 2007, we released a report, A Call to Action, made a series of recommendations that the city adopted, led to the creation of the GRID program, as well as the city's comprehensive violence reduction strategy. We've been key architects to the Community Safety Partnership with LAPD and HACLA. And also we train all city contracted intervention workers and help maintain accountability among the field. I wanted to make a series of 6 recommendations to move the city's violence reduction strategy forward and to broaden it, particularly into county areas. So 1 would be to protect the current GRID funding by keeping it in the mayor's office. 2 would be creating an ad hoc committee to assess the impact of GRID, as well as make recommendations on the city's violence reduction strategy. I think it's time to do that. Also, build political will within the county among the county supervisors and other county stakeholders to adopt a regional strategy. And essentially...
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Can I have the next speaker, Antonio Ramirez, followed by Dr. Perry Crouch?
Thank you. I don't want a relationship with these venomously nosy, jealous, uncivilized, come caca, filthy pigs, racist, hate-mongering wetbacks, and Chango Latino gang-banging thieves and pussies. And the fault lies on the city attorneys that don't prosecute these goddamn wetbacks and Chango Latino gang-banging filthy thieves and pigs because they are in bed with the cheap labor big enchiladas. Again, the Chango Latino youth are gang indoctrinated. No youth development program will abate these young Chango Latino savages and tomorrow's domestic terrorists. What we need is not more funding. We need more deportations. We need to give money to ICE and immigration, okay? And go to the pueblos and the ranchos and the safe haven sanctuaries and arrastrarlos and get them the hell out of here. If it ain't Donald Trump, it's going to be
Ramirez,
the American people.
Speak to the item, okay. Item 15.
What are we going to do with these youths? You can't do them. You can't heal them. Not even lobotomy is going to restore these youths.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next speaker is Dr. Perry Crouch. I understand, sir. It's called the First Amendment.
Thank God we're in America. First, I want to thank all my brothers. Hey, Gil, how you doing, sir? Councilman, I want to thank all of y'all for giving us the opportunity. I think one of the problems that y'all could help us partner with is sitting down with the county. The county needs to pony up money. It's just as much money as the city is because the city is taking on all the responsibility of the intervention piece with the county. For example, with Westmount, on the north end is the city, the south end is the county. When there's a homicide, the interventionists from the city must address all areas, even in Imperial Courts, on Mona, that's county. If there's a homicide or something, then the city burns up their resources addressing it. McDonald, Margaret B. Thomas, Hilda, they ready for this conversation for y'all to have.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Kaid Shaw. Did I get the right pronunciation of your name, sir?
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Khalid Shaw, Stop the Violence Foundation, 20 years in the city of Los Angeles. I want to first start by thanking Councilman Marquise Harris for not only opening the door during this 100 days, 100 nights issue, but basically, pulling it wide open. And these young men that's in the back help to create a situation where there's now an ongoing peace process. So I want to really, really take this time to thank him for hitting the ground running. I also want to talk about you know, I've heard a lot of accolades given to gang intervention and gang prevention workers. The best accolade that can be given to these young men and women who are giving their lives every day out in the community is to increase their pay, to expand their success. Councilman Price, we worked in District 1 in the city of Inglewood where there were 25 murders, went down to 0, and it's lasted over 15 years. We need that kind of support.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Keon Ming.
Okay, hello.
Hello, good morning.
On the behalf of myself, I would like to thank Councilman Harris for helping us and the community and such people stop the violence, for helping and acting against the crimes and things that have happened. We've also like to thank you on the project of the Jesse Owens Park March, and we would like to appreciate you for that, because if it were not for those such actions, people such as myself and community people I know would not have the opportunity to see better lives and realize perspective and lives of better things. Today is my birthday, and because I participate in these certain actions that come, I have faced another year to live and become more mature in life and become a better person for my community and myself. Thank you.
Happy birthday. Very inspired, and thank you very much for well-spoken young man. Next speaker, Malik Spillman.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the council. I so wholeheartedly like to say hello, and I appreciate the efforts of the city council to put an end to gang violence. As a citizen and television personality and an activist in the city of Los Angeles, attending over 350 gang-related funerals, I feel that we should respect the fact that gang intervention and prevention has grown, so has the city of Los Angeles, that we should be considered the educational and recreational developers of high-risk youth, so that way we can change the narrative in order to have the respect and not get the cold shoulder. I understand that we come from a different environment as far as being from the inner city, but it's important that the city works very close with all its constituents like myself, Mr. Wesson and several other people here, Mr. Dawson and others have took a vested interest in intervention and prevention. It's a very dangerous job, and we as constituents and citizens of the Los Angeles would like to grow with the city of Los Angeles in terms of monetary gain. Putting our lives on the line is very key in this situation. We work on a different tactical frequency, and we'd like to get the respect. Thank you
sir.
very much.
Next speaker is Dowdy Sherrills.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Mr. Dawson, for giving us this opportunity to have this platform. Thank Tangariti and the lady from GRID for highlighting some of the tremendous work as interventions, preventions that we've been doing over the past 24 years in the city of Los Angeles and the surrounding counties. I'd like to just thank everyone and just looking forward to supporting some type of study that can evaluate the success of intervention prevention, and also also GRID has presented, and Captain Tangariti. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that concludes public comment on this item. Mr. Harris Dawson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for everybody who came to testify, including the folks from Rec and Parks, LAFD, GRID, and the Los Angeles Police Department. Members, I ask for support on this motion. We are hopeful to get a report back in 90 days. Hopefully that report back can come back to Public Works and the GRID committee, and we'll hear comments there. I also want to thank members Englander and Buscaino for moving this through their committee so supportively and quickly.
Thank you very much. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Can we
Item
send that
passes.
forthwith?
Forthwith for Mr. Harris Dawson. Next item, item 14.
Item 14, called special for cards.
Mr. Eric Previn, item 14, sir. Mr. Eric Previn, followed by Donna Pierman. Mr. Previn, whenever you're ready, sir. Item 14.
Madam President, his silence is not on topic.
Silence is not on topic, Mr. Previn. That concludes your time. Thank you very much. Ms. Donna Pierman. Mr. Previn, you have to leave the podium, sir. You're not speaking. Sir. Donna, come on up.
Anyway, this is not bad. We need to fix the storm drains. We have a small rain. They make it impossible for pedestrians to cross the street. What would happen if we had real rains we had before 1979? That was real rain. We would really see a problem. So, yes, fix the storm drains. Get them working. And lastly, Wayne Spindler, please come back. City needs you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. That concludes public comment for item 14. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Let's move on to item 1. Mr. Walsh, you did fill out a card, sir, but you're out of time. So that concludes cards for item 1. So let's open the roll.
Pardon me, Madam President, and there was a request from the Department of Building and Safety to reduce the lien to $1,977.02.
Very well. Without objection, let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Let's move on to item 2.
Item 2, called special for cards.
Mr. Krikorian.
3 be sent forthwith, please.
Item 53, without objection, will be sent forthwith for Mr. Krikorian. Okay, item 2, I have one card from Mr. Walsh, but like I said before, he's out of time. So can we open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote?
13 ayes.
Item passes. Let's move on to item 3.
Item 3, called special for cards.
Rola Masri. Followed by Gail Murphy and Dr. Martin Blank.
I've actually filled out for 3, 4, 5, 6, and so they're all related.
You can only speak on this item for now, ma'am.
Okay. I just honestly want to thank all of you for your listening. I know you're here and you're listening to a lot of public comment, so I honestly thank you. I'm here to oppose the city's plan for smart poles and Wi-Fi citywide. My name is Rola Masri, and I'm a scientist and a mother of 3 children. Having a child who has severe food allergies forces me to look at his environment and to make sure that it's safe. A few years ago, our school district implemented Wi-Fi in all the classrooms.
Ma'am, this has nothing to do with item 3. You're speaking on a lighting district item? We need to stick to that. We need to stick to that item and speak on that matter.
Well, what I've heard is that the lighting is being fixed to be able to withstand a Wi-Fi, for citywide Wi-Fi. So this is why I'm speaking on this topic.
Madam President, perhaps it would be more appropriate for the individual to speak on this matter during general public comment, but this is an actual hearing that's required by Proposition 218 regarding the assessment.
So you need to speak on the item.
Okay.
On the district assessment item.
Well, I just want to say that the radiation that's going to be emitted from this Wi-Fi is not something that we want in our homes. Some of us want to wire our homes, and this is what I'm speaking about. Thank you. We don't want Wi-Fi in our homes.
Thank you very much, ma'am. The next speaker is Gail Murphy and Dr. Martin Blank, followed by Virginia Kyle.
Thank you for this time to speak. Esteemed council members, my name is Gail Murphy. I'm a 40-year stakeholder resident in Hollywood and also a board member of the Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council, co-chair of Communications and Outreach in David's District 4. I would like to talk about city Wi-Fi and the newly I would like to talk on the issue of improvements and maintenance for street lighting in LA. The Philips smart poles are cell towers and LED street lights in one pole. They are mini cell towers that double as street lights. They are in abundance all over Hollywood right now. The most important takeaway is that they are cell towers, and hundreds of them are rolling out in Hollywood to be installed LA citywide. As a stakeholder and a board member, I fought AT&T twice and won twice when they tried to install 12 cell towers on the roof of a residential apartment building on my street. Having survived that full-on assault, I can tell you that this particular project is full of sneaky. So why put Wi-Fi on light poles? Because putting Wi-Fi via cell towers just doesn't work anymore, because it's too much legal hoops to jump through, and it's entirely too much work. You have to inform residents of environmental health impacts via the mail. There's presentations, community dialogue, getting citizens' approval, and following LA County's own rules for approving new cell towers. But by installing streetlights with Wi-Fi, there's a loophole. And that is what these street lights are: cell towers that are LED lights in one package being sold as groovy new lighting. Better cell coverage. Under the guidance of the mayor, this cell tower built up was done with little transparency and disclosure in Hollywood. Like when we fought AT&T, they had to go to the neighborhood council first, and then they sent out...
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
Your
you.
time is up. Next speaker is Dr. Martin Blank, followed by Virginia Keel and Kevin Mortis.
Before he begins, Madam President, these comments are not related to these specific assessments. They are better reserved for a discussion in general public comment, which is a little bit later in the meeting. But regarding these assessments of actual street lighting districts pursuant to Proposition 218, these hearings are required, but just for these assessments, not regarding the policy, overall policy of Wi-Fi and street lighting.
Is that clear to our speakers? Are you clear on what is before us?
Yes, I am clear, but the thing is there are ramifications to all decisions that are made by the council, and I think it's important for people to know what the actual information is, and that's one of the problems. The information is not being fed to the citizens and not to the people who are making these important decisions. You put up a light pole with Wi-Fi on it, it's going to make a big difference to the people in the neighborhood. People think it's benign. They think it's a great service. There's no question about the service part. But the fact that there's damage associated with exposure to this thing is something that one ought to be aware of. And I think that it's just very relevant to the entire issue. Anyway, if I may proceed, is that let me say that I am a cellular biologist and the author of more than 200 scientific papers, as well as a book called...
Sir, I'm going to hold your time. We just got an explanation from our city attorney. We don't disagree that you have a right to speak. All we're saying is that this particular item, which you are referring to, has nothing to do with the item, so it's better reserved for general public comment. That's all we're saying. So you can talk about the policy during general public comment. This item is reserved to specifically deal with the lighting district in this particular neighborhood.
Dealing with the effect of putting the lighting poles. A lighting pole, that's one thing to have something that's there for public service. We understand the need for light, but we do not understand the need for having this radiation brought into the neighborhoods. So be right there irradiating people, and they think that it's a great service, but it's not.
If I could just focus as to what this item is about, reading from the city clerk document, the street lighting maintenance assessment district received a majority of weighted ballots in favor of the assessment. As a result, the city may impose the proposed additional annual maintenance assessments for the district. The certified results of the tabulations are attached. So the comments regarding the propriety of this type of technology are better reserved for later in the meeting for general public comment. They are not appropriate for this item.
We're speaking regarding the validity of these assessments, and we
No, sir, you are not speaking on this item,
the Department of Lighting, and they
it's
said
not
it
your
was
time to
related this
speak.
project?
I've called on Mr. Martin Blank to speak.
Well,
It's his time.
If I can just try and say again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand the way you understand the way these issues are intertwined. But I am a citizen, and I know that there are consequences to action. If you take this action, you are doing things that are going to put the public in potential harm. Not only potential, everyone gets harmed. Most of us get away with this harm because our bodies are equipped to deal with a certain amount of damage. But the fact of the matter is, it may take 10 years till one develops cancer. But if you get cancer as a result of this, I think it's important for the legislators to know that they are making a decision that has these ramifications. I mean, I'm not here to say anything about the way the lighting is going on there, but if this multi-use, it's a smart thing that you say you call it a smart pole, but it's not very smart if you're going to do things that are going to harm the citizens.
And you can say all that during general public comment. All we're saying is that
okay, I thought I would
these remarks
explain.
are not appropriate for this particular item just
yes,
yet.
I understand the law, but I don't understand as a citizen and as a scientist with special knowledge. But anyway, I thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Krikorian?
Well, just as a point of order, Madam President, because I think maybe the city attorney's explanation was certainly correct and maybe not fully understood. We have an agenda that lists specific items, and the law requires us to discuss those specific items and not a broader range of issues that may be tangentially related to those items. It will be appropriate later in today's agenda for you to raise all of those issues. We have a separate general public comment segment, and all of the comments you just made, you can make in a matter of minutes when we come to general public comment. So the President is not suggesting that you should not make those comments, just not when we're discussing an assessment district, because the vote on the assessment district is merely whether the members of that assessment district voted in a way to approve that assessment district that we should then approve. It's something that's decided by the people of the property owners of each assessment district, which we then are required to approve or not approve. What is spent by that assessment district, how the street poles go up, what goes on to the street lighting poles, all of that, none of that is before us today. We will not be voting on any of those things. We will simply be voting to approve the vote that was taken by the property owners in the assessment district. So that's why those sorts of comments are not relevant to the topic that we're discussing today, and therefore actually out of order in this meeting. So it will be absolutely in order when we get to the section of the meeting on general public comment. But, Madam President, these comments are clearly out of order now and are not appropriate for discussion during a street lighting
Thank you, Mr. Krikorian, for that wonderful clarification. I'm going to call the next speaker, but again, you have to speak specifically to this item, or I'm going to ask you to possibly fill out another public comment card for general public comment. Virginia Keel?
Yes, my name is Virginia Keel, and I'm in the same situation.
Ma'am, can you hold on for just a second? Mr. Previn, can you take a seat? Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm in the same situation as them, so I need to speak later at the public hearing.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for your understanding. Thank you. Kevin Modis?
Okay, my name's Kevin Modis. I'm with the California Brain Tumor Association. I talked to Teresa Mendez from the Department of Bureau of Street Lighting. She made it very clear that the assessment that they'll be considering for this and what they're going to be using for, we should be able to comment on, because these are public comments. It shouldn't be restricted. And separating those two issues while you're not voting on it today doesn't mean you're not going to vote on it, and we shouldn't have ability to comment on it as it's related to what it's going to be used for. So I disagree strongly, and I want to exercise my right as a citizen to make my open public comment. Just because you don't agree with my comment doesn't mean you should restrict it or censor it.
Has nothing to do with disagreeing with your comment.
This
is censorship. You're letting people talk about completely off-topic things that are completely curse words and all kinds of things. We're talking about very relevant issues.
He needs to have this discussion during general public comment. It's been explained to him, and he needs to constrain his comments to this assessment district, the vote on this district.
Okay, but the vote on this district is for this particular program, the Camilla Avenue and Lawndale Street Lighting District. And according to their citizens, this assessment and what it's for at all is in question because after they do this improvement and maintenance, and part of this, and talking to the Department of Street Bureau and Teresa Mendez, I was told part of that is to prepare these street lights to hold Wi-Fi transmitters. And with the California Brain Tumor Association, you need to understand, Italy has cut back on Wi-Fi. France has cut back on Wi-Fi. Israel is putting up websites to warn people about microwave radiation. We are microwaving our population with this plan.
You're not talking about the item.
And this
Stop
is
in time.
inappropriate.
Thank you very much. You're not speaking on the item. You can speak about the rest of your issues during general public comment. Mr. Eric Previn. Mr. Eric Previn, you're next.
Yes, thank you. You've referred to the ballot for this item number 3 today on the agenda, which is it says here protests against the proposed improvement and maintenance. So that does actually qualify, and I vigorously disagree with the city attorney and Mr. Krikorian that they're not entitled to speak about whatever theory they may have, be it kooky or real, or very, very prescient and smart. So that's part one. Part two is you talk about this great ballot and this great vote, this ballot and vote. There were 2 voters, and I'm going to identify them for you so you know who they were. 2 individuals who voted, Ms. Martinez, from your own item, Pamela Moss and V.H. Messer-Kahani, one of whom lives in Glendale. That's Mr. Messer-Kahani. The other one lives right there on Camellia. She's paying a little less. Mr. Messer-Kahani is paying $144.57 for the, and the other one is paying only $83.41. So that looks like kind of cute. Now, I don't understand that. And frankly, I've been asking, and I asked my own CD2 representatives, could I talk to the lighting district guy because I'm confused about this item? And I was given no response. And this has happened before. So I'm sympathetic to these people. I don't know about smart poles, but now I'm curious. And I want to understand, because we've been doing this, as you know, on a weekly basis at the expense of the really important discussions, not that this is unimportant, but discussions like item 15 and others, where you limit the comment completely. This body needs to correct itself quickly. Okay? You're out of line. You're out of order. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Previn. That concludes cards for item number 3. Let's open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the votes.
13 ayes.
Let's move on to item number 4. Rolla Masri. I'm going to remind you one more time. This is item number 4, and we're talking about the maintenance of Wilshire Boulevard and Coronado Street Lighting District.
Absolutely. You know, I'm looking at what you have here on your agenda, and it's to hear protest. And when you approve a light pole to be fixed, and it's been fixed, and then you put a Wi-Fi router on it later on, and people are protesting against it, how are we going to be able to protest after you've put so much money into fixing it to be able to carry a Wi-Fi router? I want to protest it now before you do that, so you know that we don't want this. As parents, as residents, we don't want this. We don't want this for our children. I know that it all sounds crazy and kooky right now that Wi-Fi might cause harm, but there is science, and there's relevant science that's showing this. I just went through over 850 pages of peer-reviewed abstract research showing anything from cancer to neurological damage to all types of
Madam
DNA
President, she
damage
is not
from Wi-Fi
talking about
routers,
this assessment
from
district.
the radiation from Wi-Fi and
Ballot
cell
tabulation.
phone.
Thank you very much, man. Your time is up. Thank you very much. You're not speaking on the item. I've asked you to speak on the item. The next speaker is Kevin Modis, followed by Virginia Keel and Dr. Martin Blank and Gail Murphy.
Okay, to remind this body, the item says to hear protest. To censor someone's protest really isn't a protest, is it? and to talk about the range of it. Is it really a protest? And part of this Proposition 218 was to get public input in depth, and to limit that input really should limit your funding for 218. And with that said, the European Parliament has said just what we're saying, that we need to limit people's wireless exposure, that we need to recognize electrosensitivity, that we need to accommodate electrosensitive people, that we need to minimize people and warn people. Blanket Wi-Fiing the entire
you're not
city.
Speaking on the item, thank you very much. I'm going to call the next speaker. Virginia Keel is the next speaker, followed by Dr. Martin Blank and Gail Murphy.
Hi, my name is Virginia Keel. I wanted to talk on behalf of my sister who suffers from electromagnetic sensitivity and cannot be around smart meters, smart electrical poles. She has severe sensitivity. She becomes flush. She has severe
Madam President, she is not talking about this
heart
item.
palpitations. She can't be in a room with cell phones.
Ma'am,
and
you're not speaking on the item.
Okay.
Not on topic. Thank you very much. Next speaker, Dr. Blank.
I'm not going to use my prepared remarks, but I want to talk to the people who are here. I notice that most of the chairs now are empty. The people who are making a decision about this issue, that this measure that's come before you for approval, is based on not listening to the input of people who are coming up to the microphone now. I think it's important for the way the democracy operates.
Sir, you're not talking about the item again.
Well, it's this item. I'm saying that this item requires more input, that when you make a decision as
Next speaker. Thank you, sir. You need to stay on the subject or you need to take a seat.
Pardon me?
Mr. Krikorian?
I'm going to try to address this issue again. Just again, Doctor, so that you understand. We will have this discussion during general public comment. The reason that we must do that is that public meetings have to be, the items to be discussed have to be agendized, with the exception of general public comment. So if all of you are speaking to an assessment district about a topic unrelated to that assessment district, we haven't given the public fair notice that they can come and talk to that issue as well. It's simply a matter of compliance with our requirements for agendizing discussion items. You can speak about it during general public comment, but you're actually putting us in a position of not giving notice to the rest of the public who might want to talk about these issues because it's not on our agenda. That's the reason that we're trying to be restrictive of what can be spoken about a lighting district, because that agenda item does not inform the rest of the public that you're going to be here talking about these issues. So that's why it must be reserved for general public comment, or else the council is not going to be in compliance with its agenda requirements. It has nothing to do with not wanting to hear what you have to say. It's that we have requirements under the law as it's dictated by the state of California as to what we do on our agenda. We must comply with that and give the public an opportunity to participate. And your discussion of these items would be as if you came up here and wanted to discuss presidential campaigns during, it doesn't give the public the opportunity to participate because it hasn't been put on our agenda. So you can speak to the general public. No, you may not. No, you may not, because this is not an opportunity for an exchange. I'm trying to make a point of order for the regulated flow of discussion in this chambers. This is not an opportunity for debate. None of you are entitled to argue with the chair. The chair has made a ruling, and that's it. Anything else disrupts the business of this council. So you may wait until general public comment, and then we will hear everything you have to say. You may not discuss these matters during an agendized item that has nothing to do with these matters. That has to be the end of this discussion, Madam Chair. Anything else is disruptive of this meeting.
May I ask the chair a question?
No.
No, you may not ask me a question, sir. You need to speak to the item.
I wish to speak to the item to ask the chair. How will the people who are not sitting in their chairs know about these issues if they're not presented when the issue is being discussed?
Thank you very much.
Chair-
You're not speaking. You're not speaking on the item. I'm going to call the next speaker, Gail Murphy. Are you going to speak to the item, ma'am? Or do you pass?
Esteemed council members, as a member of the Hollywood Neighborhood Council, I completely understand and appreciate how these rules work. I will hold on to my comments for public comment. My only question to you, in fact, is that when this council person says, I will hear everything you have to say, how much time will I have?
You have 1 minute during general public comments, ma'am.
I guess
Thank
I'll
you
have
very
to talk
much.
fast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no more cards on item 4, Mr. Clerk. Let's open the roll. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Item passes. Next item, item 5.
Item 5 called special for cards.
Virginia Keel. Passes. Dr. Martin Blank. Item 5, sir. Are you passing? Okay, thank you. Gail Murphy? Thank you very much, ma'am. Kevin Modis?
This is an issue of urgent attention. When the California Medical Association says Wi-Fi safety standards aren't adequate to protect our children, we should really pay attention. And no one really wants to talk about this topic, but we are microwave radiating our population thoroughly.
He's not talking about this item.
And it's not, and it should be our number one priority.
You're not speaking on the item, sir. Thank you. Next, Speaker Rolla Masri.
Okay. Honestly, I'll still speak to the effect that the reason for the lighting posts are to be retrofitted so that we can put Wi-Fi routers on them. And so that's why I would like to speak that I do not want Wi-Fi in our neighborhood.
Madam President, she's not talking about this.
The American Association of Pediatrics.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That concludes cards for item 5. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Next item, item 6. First speaker, Rolla Masri, followed by Virginia Keel and Dr. Martin Blank. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Masri, you're out of time. You had 1 minute left.
I didn't start yet.
You have, how many more seconds did she have on her last minute, Mr. Clerk?
They're in 1 minute increments, and she's used up 5 times.
But that's a different topic.
You're out of time, ma'am. Thank you. Next speaker, Virginia Keel. Followed by Dr. Martin Blank.
Smart light poles are hazardous to your health, and you guys need to listen. This isn't a side issue. It's a huge medical issue for
Madam President, she's not talking about this item.
Thank you, ma'am. You're not speaking on the item. Dr. Martin Blank.
No, I appreciate the opportunity for people getting to know my name. My career has been working on illuminating, I guess, so in that sense it's on topic. And I just wanted to point out that the council ought to perhaps consider how its rules are preventing the presentation of relevant information that is absolutely vital for the health of the public.
So did we have Gail Murphy and Kevin Motis? Did they speak?
Yeah.
Come forward.
Yeah. So recognize my time, half my time has been used with other people talking in my time, and the clock has been running. So I want additional time.
No. You have 1 minute like everybody else.
Okay. With the World Health Organization saying Wi-Fi is a possible carcinogen, and those scientists now saying if we assessed
Well,
it
this
today,
has nothing
it would
to
be a
do
class
with the
2A
subject.
carcinogen.
Mr.
We
Modis, it doesn't. It doesn't have anything to do with the subject.
They're going to use these street poles to hang these Wi-Fi transmitters. It's
But-
healthy for our city, along with
City Attorney and Mr. Walsh, hold his time. You're disrupting. If I have to talk to you again, then we will ask you to leave. Okay, this is not the item. We're going to discuss what the item is about. Mr. Modis, I respect what you're doing. Had a conversation with you once, but there's no nexus where it relates to this. So you can continue with your last 34 seconds, but you must remain on topic. And Mr. City Attorney, you help me keep him there. Okay.
Well, I have the utmost respect for you, Chair Wesson. I just wonder what hearing protest really means in terms of the definition here at the City Council. And we felt like hearing protest would give us a wide breadth, especially when we're talking about the same things that are on the agenda.
But
So
you
this
know
is the
what would have
question.
been better? I'll call you Kevin because we're on the first name. To do something like this during general public
Yeah,
comment.
we already said that. It's just most of the
But
councilmen.
that's the way.
Most of the councilmen leave during general public comment.
that's
and it's only a
still
minute.
where
We
it
need
should
more
be
time.
done. Thank you. All right. Now, is that the end of the speakers? Let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Okay, so item 7. So I have a Virginia Keel, a Dr. Martin Blank, a Gail Murphy, and again, I can't make out that name, Rolla, and Kevin again. So just know that this item pertains to a maintenance district that is a street lighting district, and the conversation has to be directed to that. And if it's not, then I will stop you. So if you want to speak on that item, Virginia Keel, Dr. Blank, Gail Murphy, and Rolla. Oh, wait. Miss Murphy's out of time? Rolla's out of time. And Kevin, please come forward. And Kevin's out of time as well. Okay, nobody is coming forward, so let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Okay, and it's explained to me this. It's the exact same thing on item 8. We have Rolla's out of time. Again, Virginia Keel, if you choose. Dr. Blank, if you choose. Miss Murphy, if you choose. Kevin, if you choose. No, Kevin, you're out of time. Okay, no one's come forward on that. Let's prepare to vote. Let's open the roll. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
We move to item 9, same type of situation. I will be calling the same people. So Kevin's out of time. Miss Keel still has time. Dr. Blank has time, and Miss Murphy has time. So you can come forward if you'd like to speak on that subject. No one is coming forward. Members, let's prepare to vote on this item. Let's open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Okay, now we're going to move to general public comment. Sean, are you here? Donna Pierman and Antonio Ramirez, come forward.
Mr. President, we have been friends for years, but the way this meeting's been run for the past couple of days, I'm sorry, Mr. Wesson, you're my friend, you do good, but the meetings have to be run better. For the past 2 days, it's been a dog and pony show.
Thank you, Sean, and I will do my best to do better. Miss Pierman, followed by Antonio Ramirez, followed by Oscar Mohammed.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Donna. Hold her time. Mr. Koretz, I'm sorry.
Yes, I just want to ask that item 19 go forthwith.
Okay, without objection, that'll be the order on item 19. Ms. Pearman, the floor is yours.
Okay. Bring back video conference into Van Nuys. King Weston, whose continued legacy of John Ferraro, didn't close it for monetary reasons. He did continue to take away the voice of the people, like the 1-minute public comment and constant interruptions. Los Angeles is not a bubble. The federal politics affect Los Angeles. So I can speak on it. In my opinion, Obama's a terrorist, traitor, war criminal. Need to put on trial, and when his term is over, and is sentenced to life imprisonment or hanging. He is an embarrassment to American black people. Hillary will continue his legacy. Don't vote for Hillary Clinton. Problem is radical Islam. If it's only 15 to 20% of Islam is violent and the rest is peaceful, billions of people are murdered by radical Islamics. Just like the small percentage of Germans made Nazis party, billions of lives murdered in a short time. Japan, China, Russia. Small percentage of violent people affected billions of lives.
Thank you, Ms.
Over
Pearman.
a long period of time.
Thank you.
And
now,
Syria.
Come on, Donna, you're disrupting. Come on
Mr.
now.
City Attorney, this person just called for the assassination of the sitting U.S. president. I just want to make a note.
No, Donna, just sit down, and you should choose your words more carefully. No, Donna, sit down. Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you. I don't want a good relationship with black, Haitian, Africans, African Americans, and Jamaicans, and brown, venomously nosy, wicked, uncivilized, come caca, jealous, racist, hate-mongering wetbacks, and Chango Latino gang-banging, filthy, violent thieves and pussies who are degenerate thugs, bullies, hostile, thieves, aggressive, combative, diabolical, pathological liars, and crackhead buffoons. Stop rewarding these domestic terrorists. Separate the predators from the good people. And when I mean an African American, I'm talking about good people, such as good African American. Well, I don't know him very well, but he appears to be, Mr. Dawson appears to be a good African American. Appears to be. I don't know yet. Yes, just yet. But a good Latino, a good Latina. There's a good Latina. I don't think she would engage in any kind of a criminal activity, Mrs. Martinez, okay? And obviously, a good Latino is Officer Marco Duarte. Now, there's a good Latino. That's what I mean about good people.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. So, Oscar Mohammed, followed by Virginia Keel and Dr. Blank. Yes, sir.
My name is Oscar Muhammad. I speak for the press. I speak for the struggling poor.
Oscar, speak in the mic.
And I speak for culture change. Well, we should try to find a way to have less government in our life. We should ask for more responsibility for ourselves. But it seems as though in the time of trouble in the past, it seemed as though the African American tried to turn to its creator. But now it seems as though the African Americans turning to the politician, and we were turning in the wrong direction. But I have seen that this modern-day plantation have really extended since the civil rights movement came to America. They have pushed us more on the civil rights, on modern-day plantation, and we have more spread of Uncle Tom cabinet. But anyway, it seems as though we have been afraid to stand on our own 2 feet and demand something for our own direction. We're going the political way. We should end the black people for sleeping downtown Skid Row. We should remove the homeless people from downtown Skid Row and put them in the farmland in Bakersfield.
Thank you. So, now, where you can speak on just about anything that the city has a direct or indirect relationship on, please come forward. Ms. Keel, followed by Dr. Blank, followed by Kevin Motis. Yes, ma'am.
Again, I'm here representing my sister who is electromagnetic sensitive. The smart meters are a huge issue for her. Thank you for allowing us to have opt-out on smart meters. But when you put light poles where you can't opt out and you have to go through them, she won't be able to exist in Los Angeles with her condition. People have to realize the electoral sensitivity of people. And it's a huge thing. We shouldn't be electrifying Los Angeles any further. I'd like to say I'm not a flaky type resident. I have been a professional person. If Mitch Farrell was here, he could maybe vouch for me that I am a regular type resident. It's a real problem. It isn't a fringe problem. My sister was
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Blank, followed by Kevin, followed by Miss Murphy, and on this one you can just have at it. Yes, sir.
Thank you. The 20,000 Wi-Fi transmitters planned to be used in the city's plan to Wi-Fi the entire city pose a danger of damaging our DNA. The DNA is the stuff that keeps our bodies running. We always thought about it as being the source of genetics that we transmit from generation to generation, which it is. But it's active in each of our cells, and it keeps on making the proteins that we need for our lives. And it leads to damage to the DNA, which has been shown unequivocally in a lot of different experiments, leads to conditions like cancer and a number of autism and a number of neurological diseases. The transmitters that the city plans to put throughout the city will damage our DNA and cause many of these serious conditions. If we care for children, we are not going to protect our children if we go ahead with these wireless projects. And I might add that there are also projects for putting Wi-Fi into schools, which is terrible.
Thank you, Dr. Kevin. If I can get you, and you'll be followed by Miss Gail Murphy, followed by Rola. And I can't wait for you to come up so I can get the last name. Miss Sir?
Okay, Kevin Modis with the California Brain Tumor Association. This city is going in the exact wrong direction. Intensely microwave radiating our population is the wrong direction to go in. There are hundreds and thousands of studies showing wireless health effects and very serious ones, cancerous neurological problems. We have our own human evidence. We have DWP offering an opt-out for our smart meters, and these smart meters are low-frequency microwave transmitters. This is the same thing you're going to be dealing with these Wi-Fi transmitters and these smart poles. This is a workaround. Having cell towers, transmitters in smart poles prevents communities from being able to have input and speak about what's going on in their community. And clearly, we have 20,000 signatures from residents who say they don't want cell towers near their homes. You are putting smart poles, 500 of them over 5 years across this city. This is a grave mistake. Europe has come out and is trying to minimize exposure, and we're not.
Thank you. Thank you. So if I could have Miss Murphy, if you're here, please come forward. Followed by Rola Masur. Yes.
Philips smart poles are cell towers in residential Hollywood. This is a complete disregard to residents, citizens, employees, and stakeholders by not disclosing health risks and environmental risks. Because where there's Wi-Fi, there's always a risk. It's called radiation. This should sound familiar to you. This is the reason you guys shut down LA RICS twice last spring. And thank goodness for LA Firefighters Union and the World Health Organization for classifying Wi-Fi as a 2B carcinogenic in 2011. I believe the city isn't transparent because if locals were informed about the light poles actually being cell towers, and who knows how much, how, when, they would have to acknowledge its fiduciary responsibility to disclose. I would like the City Council to take responsibility today that this layer of radiation is unfairly being forced, ignoring LA County's own rules for new cell towers and leaping over any. Thank you.
Thank you. So next. Okay. Yes, please. And you'll be followed by Mr. Previn and Mr. Walsh. And the name?
Rola Masri. Sorry.
Close.
Yeah. So I would just like to talk about a little bit of what's going on in the science behind Wi-Fi and all types of radiation that's emitted. Dr. Martha Herbert, who's a Harvard University faculty and a pediatric neurologist, has reviewed over 500 papers that link very strongly ADD, ADHD, autism to wireless radiation that's being emitted from wireless devices. Dr. Victoria Dunkley, who's an integrative child psychiatrist, says bar none, the thing that cures or lowers the symptoms of her ADD, ADHD, and in autistic patients is by putting them on a technology fast, removing them from Wi-Fi situations. Dr. Martin Blank that we have here is a prestigious Columbia University professor who's done a lot of research on DNA and the cause of this stuff on DNA.
Thank you. Thank you. So if I can have Mr. Previn followed by Mr. Walsh, please come forward.
Thank you. It's Eric Previn from CD2, and I'd like to thank Ms. Friedman for bringing the kosher food to inmates, which she has done in the past for folks during Passover. That's very, very nice. She'll be honored later. Sir, you need to treat your constituents with a basic respect piece. Now, by reducing them on the television to tiny, it's missing a cue. I've given you multiple choices or opportunities for ways to resolve it. It was very nice of Mr. Marquise Harris Dawson today to allow the people on item 15 who he had handpicked to come down and speak. And then it was not very nice of you and the DA or city attorney to deny other speakers who signed up as well. Can't we work on this together as nice people who understand that constituents are very concerned, but also informative and curious about Mr. Bonin's business and Mr. Buscaino's efforts to reduce the little houses in his district? We have lots of things to say. It's appropriate to hear from your constituents, sir. Please, I ask you, it's Council Rule 93. The city attorney will advise you that it's appropriate to open the size of the frame to...
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney?
And for the record, my understanding is that Mr. Previn turned in his card after the item had started on item 15.
Okay.
John Walsh, blogging at HollywoodHighlands.org. These anti-Wi-Fiers were allowed to disrupt the meeting. They didn't complain about Wi-Fi when they built it in other neighborhoods. Suddenly it became brain cancer when they built it in their scumbag white neighborhoods. Okay, gang treaties. That is the reason, Mr. Harris Dawson, that the Watts murder rate went down. When there was the treaty between the Crips and the Bloods was almost broken. Now that it's been back, that's why there is no why the rate has gone down. I want you to go. The people won't tell you that the mayor of the city has invited all 10,000 Syrian refugees to our city. That's what we should be talking about. And if you don't believe me, Google Garcetti and Syrian refugees, where they're all coming here and to blow us up.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. That concludes general public comment for today. Mr. Clerk, that brings us where on today's agenda?
Mr. President, Council has motions for posting and referral.
Okay, everything is posted and referred.
The desk is clear.
Now, it would be appropriate time for announcements. And members, I'm going to jump in here for a few seconds. I want to announce to you that beginning next Wednesday, ITA and Channel 5 will be in our press room. They're beginning a segment that's called the Council Minute. You can go back there next Wednesday between 9:30 and 12, and you can speak on an agenda item. You can highlight an event in your district or whatever message that you might want to deliver. And this is just a way for us to attempt to contact with the constituents better. And I'm sure as this evolves, we'll be taking questions from the public and things of that nature. But next Wednesday, a council minute. Worst case, go and wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Also, Channel 35. What did I say? Channel 35. Channel 35, I apologize, okay? But if Channel 5 wants to do it as well, they're welcome. But anyway, another thing, members, I challenged the members of this body to get engaged in a program that's called 10 Seconds of Shakespeare, where you just, I think it's hashtag 10 Seconds of Shakespeare. You pick your favorite passage and you just go at it, and it's for the LA Drama Club. It's to which teaches children in the area, young people, to be engaged in drama. I think it's a very phenomenal program, and they seem to get a kick out of seeing us, try to riddle off some Shakespeare. I know the mayor has already participated. I have participated, and I will ask all of you to do that. Again, use hashtag 10 seconds of Shakespeare. All right? With that said, any additional announcements? Any additional announcements? Where is Eddie? They tell me that, well, Eddie, our parking guy, is not here, but today is 30 years. And he doesn't look a day over 30. I mean, so let's just say congratulations to Eddie. Know that we're thinking of you. You have been here longer than many of us will ever be. So with that said, let's rise. Here it goes.
Wise guy.
Mr. Buscaino was 9.5. Okay, so just a serious note. Let's do adjourning motions for today. I'm going to look to my left side first, which is Mr. Harris Dawson, Mr. Fuentes' side. Mr. Harris Dawson.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Today I'd like to ask the council to join me in adjourning in the memory of Elder Lorenzo Patey. Lorenzo Patey was from West Palm Beach, Florida, graduated from Oakwood University in Alabama, came to Los Angeles to do a master's in business at the University of Southern California. From there, he settled in Los Angeles, where he became an educator, worked in the Beverly Hills School District, was one of the people who helped integrate the Beverly Hills school system with African-American students and with staff. As a leader in the faith community, he became the first African-American president and leader of the Southern California Conference of Seventh-day Adventist Churches. He was also the head of the Advisory Board of Chaplains for the Los Angeles County Court Juvenile Justice System. His desire to serve across community lines also led him to organize and build with Native American communities here in Southern California. Mr. Patey is survived by his wife and thousands of church members and students that he educated over the years. Join in his memory today.
Thank you, sir. I'm still looking to my left. I'll now move to the right. Mr. Koretz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to adjourn in the memory of P.F. Sloan, who was an American pop rock singer and songwriter who became a key figure in the development of the LA sound in the mid-'60s, largely working behind the scenes as a writer, musician, and producer, although he had his own groups as well. You would always find his name on record labels. He was responsible for some of the most recognizable top 20 hits of the era, working with artists such as Barry McGuire, The Searchers, Jan and Dean, Herman's Hermits, Johnny Rivers, The Grassroots, The Turtles, and the Mamas and Papas. His most successful song as a writer was Barry McGuire's 1965 hit Eve of Destruction. Probably the other one that we'd recognize the most easily was Secret Agent Man, but there were a number of others. A lesser remembered hit was Shake That Little Foot, Sally Ann, which helped start the Slauson dance craze, named after the famous Los Angeles thoroughfare many years ago. He was born as Philip Gary Schlein in New York, moved to L.A. with his family at age 12, went to Fairfax High in the 5th Council District, and was involved in the music business from age 13 on. After his meteoric early career, he went on to experience career setbacks and health issues that led to decades of relative obscurity. He reemerged as a recording artist a decade ago and published his well-received memoir just last year. The acclaimed songwriter Jimmy Webb once wrote a song called P.F. Sloan as a tribute to Sloan and his troubled life. He's one of the people who wrote the soundtrack of our lives and he died Sunday, November 15th, at his home in Los Angeles of pancreatic cancer with close friends in attendance.
And Mr. Koretz, what was that? Secret agent man, they've given you a number and taken away your name.
That's the one.
I remember that. He was a fine person. I'm still looking to my right side, Mr. Krikorian.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Members, I'd ask that the Council adjourn this meeting in memory of Pesca Friedman, who passed away on October 1st of this year. Mrs. Friedman was the mother of my constituent, Morris Fritz Friedman, who is here with us with his wife, Shirley Friedman. I know that many of you know the Friedmans and respect the work that they do in our community. Mrs. Friedman was the descendant of several celebrated Hasidic dynasties. She was a Holocaust survivor. She was a community activist along with her husband, Wolf. She was born in 1919 in a small shtetl in Poland, the daughter of a well-known Rebbe named Harav Nosson David Rabinowitz. And her mother was Rebbetzin Yita, the daughter of Harav Moshe Lieb Spira, the Sassover Streisauer Rebbe. Their home was an open place that anyone who needed a meal or a place to stay or a word of encouragement could come to. But of course that was horribly disrupted with the onset of World War II. And young Pesca was interned with so many others in the Warsaw Ghetto, from which she escaped. And she escaped the Warsaw Ghetto, then traveled to Hungary, and managed to get out on the famous Hungarian train known as the Kostner Transport. And just as she was about to get safely out of Europe by taking that train through Switzerland and then on to Palestine and safety in June of 1944, the train was instead diverted to Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, where Pesca and the other passengers on the train were interned. Sadly, many perished. But Pesca survived, and her memories of the Holocaust years were recorded in an autobiography known as Going Forward, which won wide critical acclaim. After the war in 1947, Pesca married Wolf Friedman in Paris. The young couple moved to America and settled in Brooklyn, where they became bulwarks of the community there and really celebrated community activists and leaders. Wolf Friedman was a longtime member of the Presidium of Agudath Israel. He enjoyed a close relationship with Rabbi Moshe Scherer, its well-known and respected leader, and working together they forged one of today's foremost worldwide Orthodox Jewish organizations. Mrs. Friedman is survived by her sons, David and Fritz, her daughters, Jeanette and Chani, and many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. She was laid to rest in the Mount of Olives in Israel at the close of the recent Simchat Torah holiday, and she will be long remembered and very much missed by everyone, not only in the Orthodox Jewish community, but in her community in New York and through the work of her family here in Los Angeles as well.
Thank you, Mr. Krikorian. A life well lived. I'm still looking to my right. I do not see any more adjourning motions. Members, see you on Friday. This meeting is adjourned.